It's going to be the best Christmas pageant ever.
Hey, what's up, Dallas? My name is Dempsey Pilot. I am a writer and critic. It is a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Well, thanks so much. Appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Now I just first question I want to ask you, for I really enjoyed the movie,
Oh, good.
first and foremost. But I really want to ask you, what drew you to this story? I know it is based on a book, um, and there was a previous adaptation done, but what inside of you made you want to helm the live action adaptation?
This book right here, in fact, this very copy is the one that my wife brought home 20 years ago that I read to my kids. In fact, it even has notes on it for if I ever got a chance to make the movie, the kinds of ideas that I had for it. This,
Wow.
you can see it's all dog-eared. It's been beat up because it's 20 years old. I had read the book as a kid. It's been in public schools for years. And I had seen that little TV movie that was done in the early 80s when I was like in youth group at my church. Like I think I remember we watched it and I didn't remember a whole lot about it. But when I was reading it to my kids, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this. And I'm reading the first couple chapters. It's very witty. It immediately spoke to me in that sense. I love the humor of it. I love the nostalgia of it. I'm a big Christmas guy. Well, I get to the last chapter and I'm reading the last chapter and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this. I couldn't see the pages because I was crying so hard. My tears were like falling onto the page. And I'm like, I can't keep reading. And my wife, she's like, all right, give me the book. She grabs it. She starts reading. She's crying. So she hands it back to me and we're just trading it back and forth as we're trying to get through this last chapter. And I closed the book and I swear to you, I said, I have to make this movie. And I'm like, where has this been? Why has this not been made into a movie? This combination of humor and heart, the fact that it's got this great message of the meaning of Christmas and the story of the Nativity, but it doesn't feel like a church movie or like a Christian movie where you feel like you're doing your homework just to watch it. And I'm like, I have to make this. So for 20 years, I was pursuing the rights. I'm calling the rights holders every year, and they had it set up at other studios and with other big directors. And I'd check the trades to see if there wasn't any announcements, and it just never got made. And a few years ago, I call him again. I'm like, all right, it's my time for my annual check-in. And he goes, well, the studio forgot to renew the rights. So we have them back. And he goes, just a couple days ago, my mom calls me and she says, have you seen this show called The Chosen? And that's my TV show that I've been making for a few years. And it's gotten quite successful. And he was like, it's funny, the creator of the show is always bugging me to do the rights to the best Christmas pageant ever. She goes, you better give him the rights. What are you, crazy? He's the only one who can make this movie. And he's like, well, I have to listen to my mom, so let's talk. And so the fact that I'm having this conversation with you, that you have seen a movie called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, directed by Jenkins, is a dream come true. And in many ways, something that I have been striving for and praying for and hoping for 20 years.
That is an incredible story. And so I want to touch on the point that you make that even though it's kind of I guess it's rooted in religion, but it's not a religious story. It's not about church. It's more about like the things that bring us together as human beings. Um I really like how it sneaks up on you, kind of like the children at the very beginning, the Herdmans can't
Right.
stand them. You think they're obnoxious, but by the end, you're like, they're just like how I was when I was a kid, or my kids, right?
Well, here's the thing. It's that too, but it's also, oh my goodness, because of their poverty, because of their outside status, they're actually closer to the truth of the Christmas story, the real original Christmas story from 2,000 years ago than even we are. And when you mention religious, that's the thing. It takes the religiosity out of it. We have added things to the Christmas story and put things between us and the authenticity of that story. And so we think of the nativity with the precious moments and it's a white people sitting around, of course, as a Jewish baby born in Israel. And it's like the nativity stories are always these white people with the perfect smile, and Mary has a halo around her head. And you're like, we take for granted that that is actually not how it happened, and that the Herdmans, even though they're outsiders, and we think sometimes we get in our own bubbles, and whether it's church or any other bubble, a political party, a group of people, an ethnicity, whatever it is, it's very easy for us these days to think of others as other. And okay, you're not welcome into my tribe. And that's what the people of this movie are facing. And they ultimately learn, not only were we able to help these kids with this Christmas story, but they actually helped us. They taught us something too. And that, to your first question, is really what drew me to it, is that everyone's learning something here. And I just wanted to do a love letter to the true story of Christmas.
Now, you're fortunate enough to work on this film with a lovely cast led by Judy Greer, who I love, one of my favorite actresses, and Pete Holmes, who is just absolutely versatile. And both of them are really good here because they're kind of playing against different characters that they've played before in the past. But as we mentioned, the real stars here are the children. So what was it like, one, having to direct, Judy and Pete, but alongside these incredible children actors, these child actors?
Yeah, it was amazing. Anytime you get a chance to do a movie where Lauren Graham and Judy Greer and Pete Holmes are a couple of your leads, it's awesome. And as a director, it was a true gift. But they will be the first to tell you that these kids actually raised their game. When you had these kids come on, they're so prepared. They have every line memorized. That's the funny thing about working with kids. They not only have their lines memorized, they have the whole movie memorized. And but they were like, when people watch this movie, they come to me and they go, "Where did you find this cast? These kids are incredible." We saw hundreds and hundreds of hours of auditions. And eventually the choice became fairly easy because some of these kids, like Imogene Herdman and her siblings, and then the two kids from the main family that is putting on this pageant, were so good, it was undeniable. And I was like, I've got to get these kids because they have the combination of humor and heart, which is very hard. It's hard for adults to do. I got three people in Pete, Judy, and Lauren who are very good at it. But to find kids 12, 11, 10 years old who understand humor and timing and then can also deliver the heart at the end, it was a real treat. And that sounds like a cliche, but I was very fortunate. And my job became, all right, I've got this, I'm kind of the guy with the hat in the middle of the three-ring circus. And sometimes Pete and Judy, because they're so funny and crazy in real life, that sometimes they were the ones I had to corral more than the kids just to get them to focus. But it was, I think it all comes through in the movie. The movie feels like there's chaos at times, but at the end, it all comes together in this really nice way. And I think that that's how the filming of the movie was. It was a little chaos at times, but it all worked.
Watching this, I cannot help, and I'm being honest here, to feel that this is going to be something that I want to revisit every year with my family. I can't wait to show them this movie when it comes out. But it's something that like really made me feel warm inside. Not to sound cheesy, and not to say that I'm a Grinch or anything, that I'm cold on the inside or anything. But with that being said, what kind of films do you like to revisit that you were hoping to kind of evoke the same kind of warmth with this film, if that makes sense?
No, it's a great question. I, when you watch this movie, I would bet that you can't figure out what decade it's in, what location it's in. It has a timeless feel, and I've heard that term from people who've watched it, which is so gratifying because that's what we kept emphasizing when we were making it: timeless, nostalgic. And I think that's reflective of some of the great movies in the past. And just thinking of Christmas films, for example, It's a Wonderful Life is my favorite film of all time. It's a masterpiece. And that has a timeless feel to it. Even though it's set back in a specific decade, you can relate and connect with the characters regardless of what their setting is. And of course, A Christmas Story feels timeless. But honestly, another movie that really stood out to me that I referred to a lot was Babe. The movie Babe is another one of those movies where kids love it, but adults love it. It feels timeless and nostalgic. You don't know what decade it is. You don't know the location. It has this feel. Paddington is another example. The Paddington movies, both 1 and 2. Paddington 2 is a masterpiece. And so I and my department heads, we watched Paddington 2, we watched Babe, we watched A Christmas Story. We're going for that timelessness. And I think, I'm hoping, of course, you never know. We'll see how people respond when it comes out. But you hope that this can be another one of those movies that, once a year people pull out and they don't get tired of watching.
I think I only have time for one last question, and I have to ask. You mentioned, obviously, the elephant in the room, The Chosen, monumental show. Congrats on the success. After this movie comes out, I know that there's going to be kind of an expansion. There was an animated series announced, a spinoff with Bear Grylls. But what can you tell us about season 5? Is there anything you can tease for us?
Sure. Yeah, I'm actually finishing up. In fact, later today, I'm going to be finishing up the editing of the season finale of season 5. And so I'll just mention, I guess, because I'm working on that episode right now, this is Holy Week. And so if you know the story at all, you know that Holy Week comes to a conclusion with a Judas kiss. And so I'll just say that if and when you watch season 5, you might see a Judas kiss at some point in the season. And so one of the most consequential moments in history that we know of as the ultimate betrayal is something that we feature in season 5. And I'm working on that episode right now.
Dallas, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the beautiful film. And I cannot wait to see what you do next and what other people think of it.
It means a lot. Thanks so much for helping us spread the word, and we'll talk to you soon.